In this video, we're going to take a look at my favorite app for practicing your parsing of Greek verbs and nouns and adjectives and so on. Hi, I'm Daryl Burling from Master New Testament in Greek, and I help people like you with the tools, habits, and system to master the Greek of the New Testament. If you're interested in reading biblical Greek fluently, go ahead, hit the subscribe button and hit the notify bell so that you find out when new videos are released. Well, I remember a bunch of years ago, it was back in 2012, I was going through beginning Greek for the first time, and I was struggling with this question of how do I get all these things in my head? Now, I came up with a system for practicing the paradigms and getting my head around those, but there was still this question of, well, how do I actually practice this? Try this out. And in fact, one of the things we often had to do was quizzes where the professor would give us these sheets and we would have to fill in here's a word. Is it first, second, third person? Is it, whatever? You'd have to pass it, right? And where on earth would I get the time to practice and learn how to do this? And that's where this app really came in handy. And of course, the app I'm talking about is Danny Zacharias's Parse Greek. Now, back in those days, I was working with Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek, the 3rd edition. And so one of the things I found once I downloaded this app, and it was really expensive at the time, I think it was like $6, it's a bit more expensive than that now. But one of the things I remember was that when I got this app, I saw that it had Mounce's workbook integrated into it, which means that if I was up to chapter 10, say, of Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek, then what I could do is inside this app, I could choose that chapter and work on the details just of that chapter. This was huge and a huge bonus as well. And so this allowed me really to track through beginning Greek chapter by chapter, practice what I was learning as I was going, and really master all of the paradigms and the morphology so that I was able to reliably pass exams. And that was my secret back then. This is how I got A's in Greek, was really using this app. From that day to this, I have recommended this app to anybody who's going through beginning Greek, and I want to commend it to you today as well. So initially, when this app was first released, it was released for an iPad. It was designed for a large screen, and it worked great on my first generation iPad back in those days. But over the years, the look and feel of the Apple ecosystem has changed, and apps have moved on. Now, over the years, slowly the app has migrated along with those changes as well. But one of the issues in the past has been that those changes have taken place pretty slowly, perhaps too slowly for many people's likings. Nonetheless, the app has still worked, even if it hasn't always been as up to date as it's needed to work. And the point here is that Danny Zacharias, who's the genius behind this app, he's never abandoned the application, which is fantastic. And he proved this last week when he released version 2.0. Now, there are some significant changes between version 1.0 and version 2.0. The big one is the interface. The interface in version 2.0 is designed, first of all, for the iPhone and then scaled to the iPad. Whereas in the first version, it was created for the iPad and scaled down for the iPhone, which meant that the controls were pretty small on a iPhone. Now, the release last week was only for iOS, and so it means for iPad and iPhone, but there is an update coming for Android users as well, and expect that to be released in April or perhaps as maybe March. So let me give you a bit of a tour of how this new version of Parse Greek works and walk you through how I recommend that you use it as well. The first thing you're going to notice is that the interface is significantly different. Rather than that dark interface with the blue buttons, with the size issues and everything, now you've got this much smaller, easier to follow, big controls kind of interface. So it's much easier to look at, much easier to use, and to work your way through as well. Let me give you a bit of a tour of how I recommend you use it. So you'll notice here that when I open Flashcards Deluxe, what I get to see first and foremost is I get all these different options. And each of these are books, beginning Greek grammars, that you can use to work out where you want to start from. And the goal here is that if you're working through one of these as a beginning Greek grammar, you can simply choose whichever grammar you're working through, whatever chapter you're up to, whatever vocabulary you're working on, and then mix and match that to suit exactly where you're at right now. Let me show you what I mean. Let me go in here and choose, for instance, Porter, Reid, and O'Donnell. So I can select the book and then click Next. Now let's say, for instance, that I'm in chapter 6 of Porter, Reid, and O'Donnell. Now I've been to class, I've just read the workbook exercise for this. Maybe I've memorized the vocabulary for it. Let's just say I have. So what I'm going to do is I want to start, for instance, with the concepts of chapter 6. Now chapter 6 in Porter, Reid, and O'Donnell is the second aorist active indicative, the infinitive, the imperfect active indicative, all those concepts. That's quite a lot. But you can see here I can choose the vocabulary just for this chapter, and then I could choose just the grammar for this chapter as well. So I don't have to work on anything else. That means that when I click on Next here, I can just choose all and click Next, and then it's going to give me the vocabulary for this chapter and the forms that I learn in this chapter, the morphology of this chapter, and I can start to practice those. And so what I typically recommend for students is that they first do this based on where they're at right now. And then once they've been through that list of words, they go backwards and then start to add in previous chapters and previous vocabulary so that they gradually begin to discern what's in this chapter from what's in other chapters. So start with the vocabulary and the grammar for the chapter that you're up to, learn that vocabulary and learn the grammar for that vocabulary, and then start to add in variations. Start to add in previous chapters so that you start to see how this is different from, say, other verb forms or whatever it happens to be that's come prior to the chapter you're on. And that's one of the benefits of this app, is it allows you to mix and mingle in this way. So let me go back here. The other option here, in addition to the different books, is by frequency or set. So if I select that and then I come in here, now it's asking me what frequency range would I like to select. Or I can choose to go through, say, just the article, second aorist verbs, proper nouns, me verbs, lexical middle verbs, whatever it happens to be. Lexical middle verbs, of course, what we used to call deponent verbs, but deponency's gone away, so you can find out about that up here. And so what I typically do is I go down and select by vocabulary, by frequency, because that's about all you can get. I go down to about 10. That gives you pretty much all of the more common words in the New Testament. And then you can choose from there, go next, and then you get the option of whittling that down further. So right now, by choosing everything that occurs more than 10 times in the New Testament, that gives me 9,453 words. That's a lot. That's going to take me some time. So in this case, maybe I just want to focus on verbs and maybe just the subjunctive verbs. Now you can see that's reduced it down to 716 words. Now, obviously, if I'm going to take 716 words, I'm going to be here for a little while. So I can restrict the quiz down here to, say, 25 words. And so that's going to allow me to have 25 words. On top of that, I can exclude words that I've already got right 3 times. So this is forms that I've recognized successfully previously. And I want to require the correct answer at least 1 time. And what that means is that when I've been through this set of words, if I get any wrong, it's going to ask me those again at the end. And this is really helpful to see, did you remember it the first time? Did you understand why you got it wrong the first time? And can you get it right the second time? Then I'm going to click next, and again it goes into the different options that are there for me. You can see if I look at the top right corner there, you can see I've got 25 words remaining. That's the number of words that I selected to go through. They're randomly selected, and so they're going to come in any sort of order. And so from here I can look through these and start working through them. So here I can choose to work through these. And if I get it right, you can see here that the green button, the button at the bottom, when I hit check next, it records that as being correct. And so once I've got it correct, the next thing to do is just tap that green button again, and it's going to go on to the next word. Then let's say I got one wrong. And notice here when I choose check/next, it turns it red, and you can see, or magenta, whichever color you prefer to call that. And you can see here that the one that I thought it was has also been turned red, the indicative, and the green one, the subjunctive, has been highlighted. So the highlighted one is correct. Now, of course, I should have got this right because we're only doing subjunctives, right? So this is like a duh kind of moment. And you can also see at the top right corner here that I've got now a 1 and a 1 for each of those. And so you can tell now I got 1 right, 1 wrong. Okay, so that just makes it really clear. You'll also notice at the top here that we've got this little round question mark. Now, let's say, for instance, I'm not sure why this is a subjunctive rather than an indicative. So I can click on this. And what this will do is this will give me a set of charts that I can go back to and refer to. Now this is probably going to be a different set of charts to what you use. It's different to every single beginning Greek grammar out there with the exception of one, and that is Danny Zacharias' own Biblical Greek Made Simple. So it's exactly the same as the charts you get in this book. So you can go look them up in a book form if you want to. But you can go through here and you can see I've got second declension, I've got the indicative verb forms here. I can go through and look, here's my subjunctive and imperative verb forms. And I can go through and take a look at this. You can see here that it's going to give me that indication that eta is actually part of the subjunctive formation. So I can then click back, get out of that, and go back, and now I understand why I got this wrong. Now, down the bottom here, you notice the lexical form is already given to me, ekabalo. And then you've got down the left, on the left-hand side, I cast out or send out. So you've got the lexical form, plus you've got the inflected meaning for the lexical form there as well. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I can go back to setup here, and I can choose require lexical form. Now, I normally have this turned off, but you can turn it on. And then when you click in here, it's going to give you this option down the bottom. And now I actually have to choose the lexical form that it works for. And when you get it correct, it clears that box so that it just looks like it does now. So it gives you a very quick, easy way of understanding, did I get the lexical form right or not? One last thing here, you'll notice that in terms of grammars, it's much more up to date than the previous version of Past Greek was. For example, we have Constantine Campbell and Richard Gibson's grammar here, Reading Biblical Greek, published in 2017. Not only that, we have Bill Mounce's latest 4th edition of the Basics of Biblical Greek. Now, not that it particularly matters with Mounce, because the 3rd edition and the 4th edition have pretty much the same vocabulary and the same concepts per chapter. There's no change in ordering. So even if you have the 3rd edition, it's not going to make a big difference. And we also have Danny Zacharias' own Biblical Greek Made Simple, which I mentioned just before as well. So this has up-to-date grammars in it, which makes it a really nice option as well. And even if you're not working through a grammar, you're through Beginning Greek entirely, then you can go in and use this by frequency or sets option and choose whatever choices you're up to. And you can do the entire Greek New Testament. In fact, let me show you this. The entire Greek New Testament, all words, and this is the not for the faint of heart option. Now, there's always been oddities in Past Greek, strange parsings to do with certain words, such as words that won't accept any form of parsing at all because it can't decide if it's a first person, a third person, or a first and third person indicative, for instance. Those still exist. There's some times where it could be a middle or passive and a middle passive, and for whatever reason, the parsing says one or not, but not the other. It's just weird things like that. Now, those are still there in the 2nd edition. It seems that at this stage, at least, the parsing engine itself hasn't been updated, or at least the parsing database perhaps hasn't been updated. One of those two things. And one of the things I'm told by Danny Zacharias is that the code base for this 2nd edition has been totally rewritten in native Apple code, which should allow him to do updates a little more regularly. So I'm hoping that these things will be solved pretty quickly. And in fact, he's already mentioned to me that they've found some bugs since version 2 was released last week, and they're working on fixing those right now. So I'm hopeful that this version of Past Greek will be more regularly updated than the previous version was. And so that will make this app just that much better. So have you used this app? Do you like this app? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and if you've used this app yet, and if you haven't, let me encourage you to go buy this. In fact, let me just say this. If you're working through Beginning Greek at all, and you're at any stage of Beginning Greek, let me encourage you to go and get this app and use it just 5 to 10 minutes every day while you're going through Beginning Greek. This app is, in my opinion, probably the most important app outside of vocabulary that you can have for Beginning Greek. It's that important. And so if you don't already have an app for parsing and practicing parsing, go ahead, grab this app and spend 5 to 10 minutes every day just working through whatever it is, whatever stage you're up to in Beginning Greek. And if you're already through Beginning Greek, then go through and just work through some of these things at least 2 or 3 times a week just to keep your morphology up to date. Now, this is not by any means the only parsing app on the market. And if you'd like me to do a video reviewing, and comparing the different parsing apps, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you there as well. If this has been helpful, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't think this has been helpful, give it a thumbs down. And, go ahead. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button, hit the notify bell. That way, when new videos like this are released, you'll be the first to know about them as well. Till the next video, keep taking small steps, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.